In 1928, a woman named Catherine Donahue, one of the radium girls, had to have her jaw removed due to radium poisoning, which had eaten away her bone, leaving her disfigured and in constant pain, a fate that would eventually kill her. But here's where it gets dark. This was not an isolated incident. Hundreds of women suffered the same fate, and their fight for justice would change labor laws forever. These women were employed to paint watch faces with glow-in-the-dark paint containing radium, a highly toxic substance that would ultimately lead to their downfall. The company, United States Radium, had hired these women, mostly teenagers, to work on the assembly line, painting the faces of watches and other instruments with this glow-in-the-dark paint, without providing them with any protection or warning about the dangers of radium. The year was 1917, and the United States had just entered World War I. The demand for glow-in-the-dark watches was high, and the company was looking to capitalize on this trend. They hired over 100 women to work on the assembly line, including Catherine Donahue, who was just 17 years old at the time. The women were paid relatively well, but they were not told about the dangers of radium, and they were not provided with any protective gear. They were instructed to moisten their brushes with their tongues to get a fine point, which led to them ingesting small amounts of radium every day. As the months went by, the women began to fall ill. They experienced severe pain, their bones began to disintegrate, and they suffered from anemia. But the company denied any responsibility, and the women were left to suffer. But here's the thing, the company knew about the dangers of radium. They had been warned by the scientists who had discovered it, but they chose to ignore these warnings. And instead, they told the women that the paint was harmless, and that they were just being hysterical. The women were not just suffering from physical pain, but also from the emotional trauma of being dismissed and ignored by their employers, and by the medical professionals who were supposed to help them. Nobody talks about this part, but the women were also subjected to humiliating and invasive medical exams to determine the extent of their illness, and to see if they were eligible for compensation. And this is where everything fell apart. The women realized that they were not just fighting for their health, but also for their rights as workers, and for the rights of all women to be treated with dignity and respect. As the years went by, the women's condition continued to deteriorate. They suffered from radium poisoning, which caused their bones to become brittle and fragile. They experienced spontaneous fractures, and their bodies began to glow in the dark, due to the high levels of radium in their system. The women's fight for justice became more desperate. They began to organize, and to demand that the company take responsibility for their illness. But the company refused, and the women were left to fight for themselves. In 1927, Catherine Donahue and 4 other women sued United States Radium in a landmark case that would change labor laws forever. They argued that the company had knowingly exposed them to a toxic substance, and that they had failed to provide them with adequate protection. The case was a long shot, but the women were determined to see justice, and they were willing to fight for it, no matter the cost. The case was a sensationalized media event, with newspapers and magazines covering every detail. The public was horrified by the stories of the radium girls, and the company's negligence, and the women's bravery in the face of adversity. The trial was a dramatic and emotional event, with the women testifying about their experiences, and the company's lawyers trying to discredit them. But the women's testimony was powerful, and it moved the jury to tears. In 1928, the jury delivered a verdict in favor of the women. The company was found liable for their illness, and they were ordered to pay compensation. It was a major victory for the women, and it marked a turning point in the labor movement. But here's the thing, the company appealed the decision, and the women had to continue fighting. They had to fight for every penny, and every bit of justice, and it took them years to finally get the compensation they deserved. The Radium Girls case led to a major overhaul of labor laws. It led to the establishment of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and it led to stricter regulations on the use of toxic substances in the workplace. The women's fight for justice had changed the course of history. and it had saved countless lives. But it had come at a great cost. Many of the women had died, and those who survived were left with permanent damage. The Radium Girls story is a testament to the power of courage and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. It is a story of women's rights and labor rights, and it is a reminder that the fight for justice is never truly won. And this is where the story gets even more disturbing. The company's negligence was not just limited to the Radium Girls. They had also exposed thousands of workers to toxic substances. And they had covered it up for years. The aftermath of the Radium Girls case was a long and difficult one. The women had to live with the consequences of their illness, and they had to fight to get the compensation they deserved. The company, United States Radium, was eventually forced to pay millions of dollars in compensation. But it was too little, too late, for many of the women. The case also led to a major change in the way that companies treated their workers. It led to the establishment of safer working conditions. And it led to the creation of laws that protected workers' rights. The Radium Girls story is a powerful reminder of the importance of fighting for justice. And it is a testament to the courage and determination of the women who fought for their rights. The women's legacy lives on, and their story continues to inspire people to this day. It is a story of tragedy and triumph, and it is a reminder that the fight for justice is never truly won. The Radium Girls case was a landmark moment in the labor movement. It marked a turning point in the fight for workers' rights, and it led to a major overhaul of labor laws. The women's bravery and determination had changed the course of history, and it had saved countless lives. The story of the Radium Girls is a powerful reminder of the importance of fighting for justice. And it is a testament to the courage and determination of the women who fought for their rights. And this is where the story ends. But the legacy of the Radium Girls lives on, and their story continues to inspire people to this day. So subscribe for more stories like this that will leave you shocked and disturbed and inspired to fight for justice.